New world order.
These videos are not for children. If you are a children, then piss off.
Hey there, I'm Infuso. Y'all know me. Still same OG. I don't even know why I did that. If you want to unsubscribe now, I totally get it. And I've heard you're crying. I've read your YouTube comments asking me to bring back the NWO series. Well, you know what? You wanted it. You got it. And I decided to try and bring this series back in a big way. To commemorate our return to form, I've enlisted the help of the YouTube Wrestling Elite. So join all of us in taking a look back at the significance and impact the New World Order had over the wrestling world, and just over the world itself. So let's start off by hearing about the NWO's major accomplishments in the industry. And bringing us that information is none other than Wrestling Bios.
Hey V, thanks for having me on your channel. For those who don't know me, I'm Ryan from Wrestling Bios. I cover a range of wrestling related topics on my channel, but the main focus is on 80s and 90s WWF and WCW. So when V reached out about covering the NWO's title accomplishments within wrestling, I thought, hey, why not? Let's give it a shot. So just for the record, I'm only counting championship wins here from mid-1996 to early 1999, even going as far as early 1999 is being generous here when it comes to the NWO, but the faction did still exist at this point. So the NWO made their debut at the 1996 Bash at the Beach pay-per-view. At that time, World Championship Wrestling had a few championships up for grabs. There was, of course, the WCW Championship, but along with this there was the United States Championship, the TV title, the WCW Cruiserweight title, and the WCW Tag titles. These were WCW's championship belts here. We know that New Japan would allow IWGP matches to happen on WCW shows, and we also know that Ultimo Dragon would eventually cart over his J-Crown belt collection in late 1996, but we'll just focus on WCW's own championship belts here. On the very next pay-per-view after Bash at the Beach 1996, WCW Hog Wild, NWO leader Hulk Hogan defeated the Giant to become the WCW World Champion. This was also when the title belt got spray painted for the very first time. Hogan would hold on to the championship for a year, dropping the belt to Lex Luger on the August 4th, 1997 edition of Nitro in Michigan, but reclaiming the gold back at Road Wild just 5 days later. Sting defeated the Hulkster at Starrcade 1997, and the next NWO member to have a world title reign was Macho Man Randy Savage, defeating Sting at Spring Stampede in April of 98. Around this time also, the NWO split began taking place, leading to the creation of NWO Black and White on one side and the NWO Wolfpack on the other. Hogan won the belt once again on the April 20th, 1998 edition of Nitro before dropping it around 3 months later to Bill Goldberg. The undefeated Goldberg then had his streak ended by Wolfpack leader Kevin Nash at Starrcade 98, only for the Finger Poke of Doom fiasco to go down a week later on WCW Nitro. The Finger Poke of Doom also kickstarted the NWO Elite team, leading to Hulk Hogan dropping the gold to Ric Flair at Uncensored 1999. By this time, I consider the original NWO completely dead in the water. So when talking about the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, from 1996 to early 1999, the New World Order had a total of 6 reigns, 4 from Hogan, 1 from Randy Savage, and 1 from Kevin Nash. The tag titles are a different story. While the NWO had a few splinter tag teams, the Outsiders were dominant when it came to tag team championships. Their first reign started at Halloween Havoc 96, defeating Harlem Heat in a good match that's kinda underrated. This was the first of 5 tag championship reigns for Nash and Hall, frequently dropping and regaining the tag titles throughout 97 and early 98. Sting and Kevin Nash were also tag champions during their Wolfpack days, and Scott Hall and the Giant were tag champions over on the Black and White side, so a grand total of 7 WCW tag reigns for the New World Order. Not bad at all. The United States title didn't come into the New World Order's possession until Curt Hennig captured the gold on the September 15th, 1997 episode of Nitro, defeating Steve McMichael to win the championship. NWO recruiter Bret Hart had 3 United States Championship reigns during his association with the New World Order, though many people debate whether the Hitman was really a member of the faction, but hey, he was associated with them, so I'd count these reigns here. Scott Hall picked up the United States Championship in February of 1999 at Super Brawl 9, defeating Roddy Piper to win the gold. So in total, 5 US title reigns for the New World Order in WCW during this time period. You could subtract Bret Hart's United States title reigns if you wanted to be picky, but I would let them stand. The television title was never in the New World Order's possession. The belt must have been beneath them. So moving on, the only member of the NWO to hold the Cruiserweight Championship was Syxx, winning the championship at Super Brawl 7 in a good match against Dean Malenko. Syxx dropped the Cruiserweight title on a Saturday Nitro house show in June of 1997, and the belt wouldn't come back into the NWO. So, in total, when we count up all championships, the New World Order had 19 WCW Championship title reigns during their peak in WCW. Really incredible numbers here. If you want to count the NWO 2000, then the title reign total goes up to 22, with Bret Hart holding the World's Championship, Jeff Jarrett holding the United States title, and the Outsiders briefly holding the tag titles when the NWO 2000 faction was officially formed. And if you want to talk about Japan, Scott Norton won the IWGP Championship while he was a member of the NWO, as did Masahiro Chono in 1998 and Keiji Muto in January of 1999. If we count Japan and we count NWO 2000, the grand total becomes 25 championship reigns. Again, if you wanted to be picky, the only titles the NWO didn't pick up in WCW that were active while the NWO were on TV were the Women's Championship, the Women's Cruiserweight Championship, the Hardcore Championship, and the TV Championship as mentioned earlier. Thanks again for having me on your channel, V. You're doing some great work with this NWO series, and I'm glad to be part of it. Take care.
Thanks, Ryan. And if you want to get really crazy and count their sort of canonical TNA run as the band, that actually brings the Outsiders up to being 7-time tag team champions. But that's probably a story for a different video. Not a half-bad resume, though. I think it's safe to say that the New World Order is one of the most decorated stables in all of professional wrestling, damn near eclipsing every other major team and stable, past, present, and more than likely future. So you can imagine the NWO seeing such success in this business could have very well inspired a lot of other teams in this industry to try and walk in their mammoth-sized footprints. And for more info on that, let's hear from the highly underrated Dave Knows Wrestling.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be back. Now, if you're not familiar with who I am, I'm Dave from Dave Knows Wrestling. I have my own wrestling YouTube channel, and while it may not be as big as V's, it might be someday soon. And if you want to help out with that, then go over to Dave Knows Wrestling and give a subscribe. And I would also very much appreciate if you could go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up, as it will show V some love. But alright, with that out of the way, let's get on with the episode. Now, they say imitation is the best form of flattery, and if that's true, the NWO should be quite flattered, as they do have a very long list of imitators. Let's start with DX. Eric Bischoff himself called the group an NWO ripoff, and when you think about it, there is a lot of weight behind that argument. The group featured the other members of the clique that weren't in WCW, they took X-Pac right after he stopped being Syxx, and remember, in the beginning before they went all green, their original colors of black and silver, as well as the design of their first shirt, does bear a striking similarity to the NWO tee. But we don't have to stop there, because there's also the Nation of Domination. Just like DX before they fell into their own, there was a lot of NWO in the early days of the NOD, as the faction wasn't always a black separatist group. However, since both of these teams' levels of gimmick infringement is suspect at best, let's not overlook that there have been plenty of other groups that are undoubtedly copycat versions of the New World Order, like the Blue World Order, who by the way have one of my all-time favorite entrance songs ever. The BWO and ECW started as the Blue Meanie, Stevie Richards, and Nova, members of Raven's Nest, would come out to the ring and parody all manners of pop culture. And one night, they came out to the ring poking fun at the rock group Kiss. Now this got them extremely over, and when they went backstage, Bubba Ray Dudley told them that the only way they could ever do anything better is if they parodied the NWO. And just like that, the group was formed. At November to Remember 1996, they made their debut. Now originally, the group consisted of Big Stevie Cool, a knock on Big Daddy Cool Diesel, Hollywood Nova, a take on Hollywood Hogan, and The Blue Guy, referencing the bad guy, Razor Ramon. But the fun wouldn't stop there. Other members would come and go, like Thomas the Inchworm Rodman, a rip on the worm Dennis Rodman, 7-Eleven or 3½, a parody of 6 played by a young Rob Feinstein, but enough about him. And there was also Stink, a play on Sting portrayed by Daniel McDevitt. Plus, let's also not forget about a very recent addition where Blue Pants unofficially joined the group. I mean, how perfect is that? Oh, and there was also a Japanese chapter to the faction featuring Taka Michinoku, Terry Boy, and Dick Togo. This was a direct reference to the NWO Japan, which was a faction that was officially New Japan Pro Wrestling's version of the New World Order. And while they were mostly known as NWO Japan, they were also known as NWO Gundam and NWO Typhoon. The group ran from December 1996 all the way to early 2000. And the group began with Masahiro Chono, Yoshihiro Tenzin, and Hiro Saito. Now, Chono was officially the group's leader, but he had to leave in 1998 due to injury and was replaced by another legend, the Great Muta. Throughout their time, the group had other Japanese wrestlers come and go, but in addition, there were also some American NWO members who would run with the group on occasion, such as Six, Buff Bagwell, BK Wall Street, and the Outsiders, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall, which is kind of weird when you think about it since the term gaijin actually means outsider, but anyway. Now this really should come as no surprise, especially since New Japan has always had a really good working relationship with WCW. And let's also not forget that NWO member Scott Norton was also a former IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Oh, and another interesting member of the Japanese team was Big Titan, played by Richard Bogner, who is probably best known for playing the fake Razor Ramon. That's right, both Razors were part of the NWO Japan. Go figure, right? However, while we're talking about New Japan, I have to at least mention the Bullet Club. After all, they do, or should I say they did, use the Too Sweet hand gesture, something made famous by the NWO. Anyway, moving on. TNA has also got into the action too, as some saw Aces and Eights as being very NWO-esque. But more directly, let's talk about The Band, a short-lived reunion of Hogan, Six, Hall, and Nash referencing the NWO's 2000 run that started after Kevin Nash started proclaiming that he was getting the band back together. But now, don't think that other companies were the only ones copying WCW's Cash Cow, as World Championship Wrestling itself mirrored the group on a number of occasions, famously with the Latino World Order. Led by Eddie Guerrero, the team consisted of Rey Mysterio, Juventud Guerrera, Psicosis, La Parca, and other Latino wrestlers. In reality, this all started because Eddie Guerrero got into a real-life disagreement with Eric Bischoff, which was used to springboard the angle. And believe it or not, the idea for the stable came from Jason Harvey of all people. Yes, the older brother on the Wonder Years, who is a big wrestling fan and close to the business, if you didn't know. Now, the idea was originally meant for Conan, but was switched to Eddie Guerrero when Conan joined the Wolfpack. And in my opinion, this worked out for the better. The storyline started with Eddie Guerrero wanting out of his WCW contract, but only to return to TV to form the new group. And if you were wondering about Chavo, well, he wasn't allowed in because he was carrying around a wooden horse at the time. Unfortunately, the group had to disband after Eddie suffered a car accident. In story, they broke up because the NWO began threatening them, and Ric Flair asked if they would disband in order to fight alongside WCW, where he promised that he would treat them much better than Eric Bischoff had. This led to a feud between the members of the two groups, most notably Kevin Nash and Rey Mysterio. This eventually led to the NWO turning on Conan and several members of the LWO joining up with him to form a new group called the Filthy Animals. But we're still not done yet. Before we get out of here, allow me to also run down a few more quick parodies, like the Insane Clown Posse and their Juggalo World Order. However, that wasn't the only JWO, as in the world of football, both the New York Jets and the Jacksonville Jaguars also had a JWO of their very own. Plus, college football team Ole Miss had a group that they referred to as the Nasty Wide Outs, also the NWO. And there was also an adult film called Nude World Order, which, I swear I saw only for the articles. Well, that's going to do it for me. Thanks again to V for having me here on this awesome channel, and if you could please subscribe to my channel, Dave Knows Wrestling. Thanks so much for watching, and now, back to you, V.
Thank you kindly, Dave. And man, that guy sure does know a lot. I guess it's not just a gimmick. I'd also like to point out that there's been a lot of other places that you can see the NWO brand parodied, especially its logo. People like Randy Orton, Brian Zane, and myself on 2 or 3 separate occasions have used NWO-inspired logos. And speaking about that RKO logo that I just hinted about, I think it's time we hear from yet another highly underrated YouTuber who is destined to one day overtake my channel in subs, and here I am just helping the guy, WrestlingGifs, who's gonna tell us about the NWO spread from wrestling into pop culture.
What's up YouTube, it's your boy Pav aka WrestlingGifs, and let's just pretend that this isn't an RKO shirt and that it totally is an NWO shirt. Now if you know me, but you probably don't, it's fine, I'm used to it. I make videos about wrestling on YouTube, and I like to sprinkle in as many pop culture references as I can. So it's only right that I'm here to talk to you guys about the NWO and pop culture. Let's get into it. From the day the NWO was born, they instantly became the hottest thing in wrestling, but you already know that. There's been like 50 million DVDs and shows created about it. But the coolest thing about the NWO was, well, they were cool, and as a result, they were everywhere in pop culture. First of all, everybody and their mom had an NWO shirt. It's an iconic shirt that's simply timeless. Hell, Kendall Jenner wore one a few years ago. The NWO shirt transcended wrestling. It easily became streetwear, but it was more than just a shirt. March 97, you would Hall and Nash and Six pull up to MTV Spring Break, and they took over. But never forget some random idiot throwing a rock at Kevin Nash, so Kevin Nash chased him down like he was CJ from San Andreas and whooped his ass. Remember when WCW would do Spring Breakout? Let's be real, who did everyone want to see? The NWO. The Tonight Show basically became the NWO show. The Tonight Show was one of the most watched shows in the 90s, and you had Hogan and Nash pull up in NWO colors, and they were the main focuses of the show. NWO casually shooting angles on one of the most popular shows in television. It was just a special time. Oh yeah, and see this guy that was on the Tonight Show with Hogan? Yeah, that's Dennis Rodman. Yeah, see, before being Kim Jong's best friend, he was one of the most popular and polarizing athletes in the world. He made his name on the Bad Boy Pistons and then played alongside MJ on the Bulls. He was on fire, dating Madonna, being in movies, magazine covers, books, and oh yeah, he was a member of the NWO. He wasn't just some, oh yeah, let's get a celebrity for a week or two. No, he was NWO through and through, and he was NWO for life. It doesn't get more badass than Rodman and Hogan walking out to Jimi Hendrix while Rodman would smoke a cigar and carry the belt. Rodman was so NWO that this man skipped practice. Yeah, we talking about practice during the NBA Finals to come to Nitro. I want this figure set so bad. Dennis Rodman in the NWO was just awesome. Even when the Wolfpack came through, their theme is one of the greatest wrestling themes of all time. You had C Murda kill it. C Murda from No Limit Records, and he made a banger. The NWO was just everywhere. Dinner and a movie making NWO cakes. Monster Jam had an NWO truck. NASCAR, yeah, remember when they were popular? Well, they had an NWO car. They were just pop culture. Everybody copied the logo. Everybody had the shirt. You turn on TV, they were there. Hell, turn on the radio and you got Hogan and Rodman with Howard Stern. Didn't matter where you were or who you were. Yeah, if you were an adult, listen to them on Howard Stern. If you were a random kid in Britain, you had Kevin Nash on your Saturday morning show. You turn on ETV and the NWO is at award shows. Like I said, the NWO was pop culture. And they still are. You still see countless celebrities wearing the NWO colors, wearing the NWO shirts. The NWO made a huge impact on pop culture that still felt to this day. Now, you can take everything I said and just be like, well, it doesn't matter. It was the wrestling boom. Wrestlers were everywhere. Rock was here. Austin was there. But at the end of the day, what started the wrestling boom? Of course, the NWO.
Thanks, Pav. And in a similar context, let's bring in none other than Top 10 Wrestling to let us know about what can only be called the celebrity wing of the New World Order.
Pro wrestling has a rich history of celebrity crossover, whether it be Mike Tyson joining D-Generation X, Adam Pac-Man Jones winning the tag titles in TNA, or The Miz being banned from the Summerfest by Jeremy Piven. Mainstream crossover is nothing new in wrestling, and we even saw it in WCW with people such as Chucky and RoboCop. But with the NWO being basically the biggest thing in WCW for a long time, it meant that they were open to mainstream crossover, and they would actually end up having 4 celebrity members in their ranks. And I'm going to talk about every one of the NWO's celebrity members and give them a rating out of 10. Thank you for inviting me on here, V. Let's get into this. First of all, we have Kyle Petty, who was a NASCAR driver who raced from 1979 to 2008, and I'll get this out of the way right now, but I'm British, so I have absolutely no clue about NASCAR. But on September 23rd, 1996, in an NWO paid announcement, it was announced that Kyle Petty had joined the NWO. Well, sort of, but not really. He never appeared on Nitro or on pay-per-views, but what he did was he changed his NASCAR racing car to an NWO theme and changed the design of it completely, and the car looked really cool. Like, I'm not even lying, I mean, I'm an outsider of NASCAR, I have no idea about it, but I gotta say, this car looks pretty dope. And he would use the car until September 5th, 1997, just under a year later, so I guess that's technically the day he left the NWO, I guess, but I'll give it an 8 out of 10. It was a really cool crossover, and the car design was pretty sick, so good one. So next up, we're going to talk about 2 people at once. Those 2 people being Paul Gilmartin and Claude Mann. 2 people who, once again, I have no idea who they are. Claude Mann doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. But apparently, they are both from the TV show Dinner and a Movie, which was an American cooking show that ran from 1995 to 2011. Paul was the host and Claude was the chef, and I mentioned these 2 at once as they were both one-night members of the NWO, only ever being part of the group at Clash of Champions 35. The 2 were the hosts of the show, and all I've got written in my notes is that DDP hit Paul with a diamond cutter, so 4 out of 10. And finally, the most notable celebrity member of the NWO, Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman was a basketball player who played in the NBA for about 15 years, and he had a heavy involvement in wrestling, particularly in WCW, of which he debuted for on the March 10th episode of Nitro alongside his friend Hulk Hogan. Rodman would actually wrestle a few matches in WCW, mostly tag matches where he teamed with Hogan, and his debut match saw him and Hogan be defeated by the Giant and DDP at that year's Bash of the Beach. And then, at the next Bash of the Beach in 1998, he and Hogan teamed up against Karl Malone and DDP. See, I didn't know who Karl Malone was when I was researching this, but this is what I learnt. In the 1997-1998 NBA season, Rodman, his team, the Chicago Bulls, defeated Karl Malone and his team, the Utah Jazz, in the NBA Finals, so WCW decided to have them wrestle. Rodman and Hogan would defeat DDP and Karl Malone in a 25-minute, poorly received match. And I'm going to give Rodman a 10 out of 10, just because I find it so hilarious. Like, for Christ's sake, the guy even wrestled Macho Man Randy Savage one-on-one. Anyway, that's all from me. Thank you to V for having me on today. You can check out my channel, Top 10 Wrestling. I do TNA content mainly, but I've got other plans to do other content surrounding other wrestling companies, such as WWE, Ring of Honor, AEW, etc, etc. So yeah, check me out, link in the description, hopefully, if V puts it there, which I hope he does, because he's a very nice guy, so I'm sure he will. But thank you everyone for listening to this.
Thanks, Ben. Now, I think in keeping with the same theme, I want to hear from someone a lot of you may not know too much about. But you should, because he's got some great content. With just under 1,000 subscribers, this man is a hidden gem. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you a Hibiki TMD.
Some of the biggest and most underrated factors in what made the NWO such a huge success at the time was the use of mainstream celebrities and sports figures. Ironically, that's ultimately what killed it by the end, with using David Arquette as champion. Didn't really help matters, but let's take a look at the prime key guys that made this a success for its time, like Dennis Rodman, Karl Malone, and a few others. I think it was pretty unanimous for most people inside the wrestling business at the time, except for the guys profiting off of it. And to most wrestling journalists, these matches were always a laughingstock. Whether it was Reggie White, Kevin Green, Dennis Rodman, Karl Malone, it didn't matter. They were utter jokes. For me personally, to this day, the two best uses of a celebrity in wrestling of all time are still not even in this company. It's Mike Tyson at WrestleMania 14, and I for one love when Kevin Owens powerbombed Machine Gun Kelly off the stage on Raw. Even dating back to before the NWO was even a thing, you could see that Eric Bischoff was very keen on bringing in mainstream figures like Mr. T, Dennis Rodman the first time, and other guys.
Place, man. Take it easy, big man, right?
It got to the point at one time in WCW, Eric Bischoff was bringing in so many celebrities and sports figures for cameos, a lot of them didn't even mean anything. Like here, Richard Petty, Kyle Petty, whichever one it is, hanging out with the NWO, and then nothing ever mentioned of it again. Now for me, while I personally enjoy Rodman and Malone at Bash at the Beach, I don't think this entire concept completely fully jumped the shark until Jay Leno. The thing is, with Rodman and Malone, at least sometimes some of it was actually watchable. None of the entire run with Jay Leno, Kevin Eubanks, and any other bullshit they threw together seemed believable or real at all. And the worst part is, the bell had to eventually ring, and watching Jay Leno work a match is one of the most horrifying things these eyes have ever seen. It was really all downhill from there, not really just in the NWO, but for WCW in general. Every celebrity usage got worse and worse, from Kiss concerts to Kiss characters. Howard Stern guys, just weird shit. Nothing really mattered anymore. They were literally throwing anything at the wall to see what stuck.
It's Mr. Flatnut to you.
And nothing did. It was a plastic wall. And this, you could say, was lube.
Thanks, Hibiki. So now that we've seen the NWO take over pop culture and infect Hollywood, why don't we find out about how the New World Order fared in the virtual world of video games? And who better to ask than 616 Entertainment?
What's going on there, VTards? I hope there's a couple Dan-Dans out there too. You guys might recognize me from the history of Mortal Kombat, or the history of WCW video games, or maybe Triangle X Squared Circle, the wrestling game retrospective series. My name is Ian from 616 Entertainment, and V, I gotta say, you're doing a pretty damn good job covering the NWO in their prime, but I have to let you know that they weren't a force just in the physical realm, but in the digital realm as well. We went from having WCW branded video games to WCW NWO branded video games. To put that into perspective of how big that is, we never had a WWE DX video game, did we? The games even started separating the NWO roster from the WCW roster. Win the world title with an NWO member and watch the spray paint appear on the big gold belt. If you guys want more info on wrestling video games, you can head over to my channel at youtube.com/616entertainment, but don't you dare click away from this video before it's over. V's got a lot to show you.
Thank you, Ian. Very much appreciated. And he's not wrong. The NWO were a huge factor, if not the deciding factor, as to which game I would wind up asking my parents for. I mean, the WWF was great, but they didn't have the NWO. Plus, are there seemingly endless hours of entertainment to be had in just the character select screen alone? I think not.
Orale! Arriba la raza!
Wait a second. I know what you're thinking. You want to be me like everybody else. Forget about it. You don't have the mental skills or the dexterity. Go on. Go pick somebody else.
I'm gonna rough you up, you little punk. I'm gonna rub your face in the mat. And when it's time, boom.
Don't make a big mistake. Get with the madness. That's what you want to do. Oh, yeah!
I'm buff, I'm tough, I'm the stuff. And if you don't pick me, well, I guess you're just not enough.
You'll find out the man with the largest arms in the world does whatever he wants. You know, I tricked you before, I'm gonna trick you again, but this time, the torture is gonna last longer.
Now that we've seen the NWO in the ring, in the media, inside consoles, I think it's time that we take a look back at one of my favorite places to see the NWO when I was a child, on store shelves. So with that being said, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but Take it away, Grim.
What's up, guys? It's Grim from GTS Wrestling, and I am part of this NWO review, even if it is for that bald bastard V Infuso's show. Now, the NWO was everywhere in the 90s and still has an influence over professional wrestling today on TV, video games, and most importantly, in the toy aisles. And I'm here to take a look back at what you could find on the shelf back in the 90s, back when the NWO ruled wrestling. And then we come across this shit. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, dildo dolls. Were these the fucking vibrators? They had buttons on the side and they just... They fucking vibrated.
Look at this thing. What's this? Push the button. What the heck? I know, right? Vibrating action figures. What on earth are you supposed to do with a vibrating piece of plastic?
Put it on your fucking... These things were awful. Probably the worst fucking figures. What were they thinking with this shit? We got Kevin Nads with the power punch. Crap, I never bought this figure. These things, they didn't pose, they didn't move. I think maybe the arms might have twisted, but pure shit. Now, what the hell is this? I've never seen this figure before in my life. WCW Collector's Edition, Target exclusive. Maybe I wasn't paying attention to the internet enough to know that this figure existed. It looks like something I definitely would have picked up. I like exclusives. I like collector's editions. And never knew this one existed. But it actually don't look bad. It actually looks kind of badass. New logo, ho! The new WCW logo that didn't last very long because the company went out of business soon after. But yes, it's got the new logo, ho! And then we got ruler of the ring here. Ring Fighters, Bret the Hitman Hart. They came with little pieces of a ring to put a ring together, which was dumb. But yeah, Bret Hart looks badass here, ready to kick some ass. Another great figure for the 90s, I'm just saying. Here we got Scott Steiner, Clothesline Action Corner Ring. This was in the same set as that Bret the Hitman Hart. Not a bad figure for the 90s. Scott Steiner telling you the math that you've got a 33 1/3% chance of buying this figure. And that came in TNA, that was later on. Then we have this Hogan here. Whoa, look at it. I don't know. Kind of shitty, but kind of good. I don't know. This one was in the middle here. The face sucks. It doesn't look like Hogan at all. Oh, yeah. There's that Hogan we just seen loose, but now he's in the package. Smash and slam. Oh, I get it. He had like the retractable arms and shit, and that's why the figure quality suffered because they had to put the motion in there. Now, as a kid, did you want a figure whose arms would snap back and forth, or just that looked good? I didn't want the stupid fucking action. I just wanted my figure to look good. Too stupid. I don't know. But then again, not everybody's like me. All right, so now we have this Hollywood NWO Live On Forever 4-pack. Hogan. We got, who's that jerk off? Oh, Marcus Bagwell. And the Shit Show, the Giant, and Scott Steiner. But they don't look that good. They're kind of trash. Then we got, the Macho Man. Trash. Then we got, now see, these, they have the action, but this is actually a really attractive set. In my opinion, I think it slaps. That's the kind of figure there. Comes with a championship, comes with a display base, 2 major names, Clash of the Champions. That's an awesome set right there. And the figures ain't bad for 90s figures. Next up, now these ones weren't too bad. We got Macho Man and Elizabeth. Oh, wait a minute. I had that Macho Man. I've never seen that Elizabeth. Is that like a prototype that maybe never hit the shelves? This is supposed to be a review of the figures that were on the shelves. I never seen that fucking Miss Elizabeth figure before. Elizabeth, Power and Beauty. Yeah, the Macho Man. Exclusive collector's stand. I never seen this set. I want it. I actually want this. I'm going to go fucking on eBay right now and buy it. Don't outbid me, bitch. Oh, stink. There he is. At least that was something. Figures were not as good as they are today. I mean, you got to think about it. This was 30 fucking years ago, people. That actually was a good figure for the 90s. That Sting right there. Now, oh yeah, I had many of these. The Scott Hall. Scott Hall with, what does it say at the bottom? What kind of action? Breakaway table? Yes, and he came with the Sting mask and everything. I probably had 6 of those because Scott Hall's my favorite. And they also repainted him and they put him in red Wolfpack colors. I also had 6 of those. That was a top-notch figure for the 90s, let me tell you. These were better than the bone-crunching actions. And this is why the WWE figures turned into the Titantron Live I had this set too. Hogan and Rodman, which was weird because they were like a larger scale than the other figures. I'm like, why do you do that? That's too stupid. They didn't fucking fit with the regular scale of the other fucking figures. Duh. And there it is, the awful, the original, the Kevin Nash doll. The audacity of, what was it, Toy Biz to put this bullshit out? No, San Francisco Toy Maker. Guys, that's my review of the NWO figures. I hope you guys check out GTS Wrestling over on the Silly Super Pop channel. And if you're not down with that, I got 3 words for you. Eat it. Yeah. Because the NWO is just too sweet.
And that's not even all there was out there. There was plenty more strange WCW and NWO toy lines. There were the figures that had magnets in their fists. Because yeah, letting children play with small magnets that can easily be taken out of the wrestler's fists and swallowed, well, that's not frowned upon at all. I can't see how that could possibly go wrong.
Fucking magnets, how do they work?
You had the small steel figures because, hey, why not? You can't really move it around or play with it, but you can throw it at someone and use it as a weapon, so there's that. That's a positive in my book. You had whatever the hell this is, which I can only imagine was a toy you could win inside one of those claw machines at Six Flags. Oh, and you had the bash and brawlers that would make you think that they were possessed with how often they just went off on their own and started talking. And you could see how they're a hit. I mean, this is 1998. What little boy didn't want to go to sleep cuddling Hollywood Hogan? I know I did. My grandfather went out of his way. He got me all of them. I got 3 different Stings. You also had those big figures where you could just like you put them near each other and then you press a button on their stomach and then they start speaking to each other. But like the Bash and Brawlers, they'd go off on their own all the time and you didn't know what the hell was going on. It's like the final scene from Toy Story. It was horrifying. That's just what I want to think about. A miniature Buff Bagwell and Scott Steiner getting ready to put an 8-year-old me into a headlock. So as you can see, during the 90s, the NWO was inescapable. The New World Order wasn't just a bloated wrestling stable. They were almost a movement. They were everywhere. Everybody knew about the NWO. Even if you didn't like wrestling, you didn't know a damn thing about wrestling, you knew the NWO. I want to give one last thank you to everyone who contributed to this video. I actually had a lot of fun creating this, and I'm hoping you guys had some fun watching it. So contributing degenerates, do me a favor. Actually, come to think of it, do me 2. 1, let me know what you thought about the video in the comment section below. And 2, like the NWO, I'm going to ask that you go and invade my contributors' accounts. All their links can be found in the description, so head on over to their channel, give them a couple likes, subscribe, and then go to their comment section and let them know who sent you. This is our way of spray painting 3 initials on their back. Instead of NWO, it's VEE. They'll know what it means. It's a hidden code, but they'll get it. So this video is the official return of the ongoing NWO series I've been doing, but we might see one more of these multi-channel crossovers before we get back into breaking things down month by month. Fingers crossed, we'll see. So once again, thank you Wrestling YouTube-verse. Thank you Patient and Impatient Marks for waiting for a return of the series.
That's it? That's it? It's over? Well, let me tell you something, brother. You're watching the social injustice warrior, V Infuso's channel, dude. So if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too want to become a V-tard, don't forget to like and subscribe, and click that little bell icon to get updates and notifications. Ooh, tell him what up, Mach. Ooh, yeah. Follow the man on Twitter, yeah, because we all know it's not stalking if it's on the internet, yeah. Join the madness by joining the Discord, and if you have a moment of time and a free $1 to spare, head over to the SIJW's Patreon, dig it, where you can request videos, get exclusive videos, and early access to content, yeah. Or go down to PayPal, where you can buy the shirts, brother. But most importantly, just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.